I'm Sarah Jane Tresco. I'm so pleased to see you all here, and we're going to have a good and educational evening tonight. To start with, I'd like to thank all of our partners and sponsors, the Boathouse, of course, for the wonderful venue, exclusive events for the bartending service, Larkspur Bistro and Bar. Oh yeah, go ahead. Wonderful food from Larkspur, Open Wichita, Curve Break, Digital Brand for recording, videoing the events for us, which we put up on engageict.org. The Wichita Public Library for further reading resources guides that they provide each month for us, which if you missed an event and would like to read about the topics in general, we have information at our table. And the Knight Foundation Fund of the Wichita Community Foundation for helping to fund Engage ICT with a wonderful grant. Let's have a hand for all of our partners. So we'll go ahead and kick it off here. Each panelist will give an overview from their perspective on the issues that we're talking about tonight, and then we'll have a discussion. And then after that, a Q&A session where you all can get your questions answered. Please be respectful of everyone's time and only raise your hand to actually ask a question if you have.
Thank you so much, Sarah. Sarah said I had to put the microphone really close to my mouth, so pardon me if I look a little silly. But thank you so much for having me this evening. And obviously, diversity and immigration are issues that are very important to myself, as well as to Sunflower Community Action. And first talk a little bit about immigration and how I feel we've gotten into the predicament that we've gotten into recently here in the U.S. Obviously, when you talk about migration, it's something that's a really long-standing issue. Obviously, a lot of times people assume that this is something that we just figured out over the past election cycle that has been an issue when that's simply not the case. I think that we've gotten into this, if you really start to look at some of the trade agreements that have happened, things like NAFTA, things like CAFTA, and the circumstances that those trade agreements have created in Central American countries, such as Honduras, Guatemala, Mexico. If you look at what those trade agreements allowed U.S. companies to do was to go and set up shop in those Central American companies or countries, and of course the circumstances around the employment in those countries are not very good. And that in turn cause people to want to migrate away from those countries to come to the U.S.
With people. In regard to our topics tonight, immigration and diversity, my thoughts on immigration, I don't know a whole lot about the situations going on, but what I do know is that the system needs to be fixed. And talking with people who have been through the process, who are here without documentation, folks who have went through a 3, 5, 7-year process to get legal status, something is wrong with that system. And I think that our Congress on the national level really needs to rethink how that process works. What are the, steps folks need to take? And if there are any quotas, in which I've heard that there are quotas from different countries, then we need to really rethink that as well. People are people, and people come from all over. And I think over the decades, America has done a great job of selling the American dream to the world, and it just makes sense that people want to be a part of that and come over here and live out their American dream. Not everyone's economy is as strong as America's, and people want to come here for employment and to raise their kids. And I think that we need to take the political overtones out of it and just really talk as people about how we can make that system more fair in regard to immigration. When it comes to diversity, diversity is really, really special to me. It means a lot, and I think it takes a lot of thought. We didn't really define it when we say diversity, but it means so much, whether it's racial, whether it's gender, whether it's age, whether it's sexuality. Diversity means a whole lot. And when it comes to the city of Wichita, we really have to do a gut check about diversity. because diversity is just a buzzword. The real word is inclusion. And are we really inclusive? When we talk about, you see businesses, you see candidates, you see elected officials, we're so diverse. We are a diverse city. We are a diverse business. Well, how are you diverse? Do you just like the word? What are you doing to be diverse? Just putting the word out, making people think that you're friendly to diversity? Are you really being inclusive? So if you...
One of my visions for Wichita. I came to Wichita back in 1995, and I started organizing a youth group at church in Spanish. And I fell in love with Wichita. And people ask me often, why Wichita? I live in Colorado, I live in California. And it's just like, I always tell them, it's like if you ask me why did I fall in love with my husband, it's just hard to explain. My life in Mexico was pretty difficult after my father died. And coming to the U.S. at the age of 12, I didn't know what the life was in Mexico, like as being an adult. But in 1995, when my husband was deported, I decided to go there regardless that I didn't have any status, so I knew I wasn't going to be able to come back. My mom and my sisters were left behind here in Wichita, and I just really tried hard to keep my family together, my son, my husband. But in 2012, my husband was kidnapped by 2 police officers for ransom. And we just were victims of a lot of violence in Mexico. We used to see, my son and I, my son was only 6, 7 years old, we used to see bodies hang from bridges. And it was very difficult. I just wanted to come back home. So in 2013, a group of dreamers called me and asked me, I have been reading my story to different organizations, and they read it and they called me and invited me to perform the civil disobedience. We knew we were going to get detained. We were in detention for 17 days. We were prepared for that. We thought it was going to be longer, but thanks to the community and some congressmen wrote letters to President Obama, we were released after 17 days. Those 17 days were really hard inside the detention center to gather as many stories. It was only an immigration detention center. So most of those stories were very painful because the people who is in detention centers like that, they haven't committed like a crime. When you listen the stories on the news and they said, oh, they deported 30 illegal immigrants. Oh, but they're criminals. When they talk about criminals, it's because they didn't have a driver license, or because they use a fake social security number, which we understand is a fraud, but they didn't use intentionally, like, to screw other people up. There's just no choice for people to do it other way. So I came back to Wichita, and then my husband did the same thing, but he had to spend 2 years.
Well, I was born in Chihuahua, Mexico, and I came to the United States as an undocumented immigrant. I am what you can call 100% wetback. I want to talk about that term a little bit. Is there anybody on this room that knows where this term comes from, wetback?
Swam across the Rio Grande to get here.
So who came out with that word?
I have no clue.
Good. Congress actually, just like illegal aliens and other derogatory terms, Congress came out with that word. And when they needed people to work on the fields, they enacted, and I think it was in 1952, I don't remember the exact year, enacted the Wetback Act. So when I am blaming the United States for a lot of the ills of society here and out overseas, everywhere. Not necessarily everyone who lives in the United States, but a lot of the politicians and the elected officials and the think tanks, slash elect and others. That said, I live in this country for 13 years as an undocumented immigrant, and after 13 years and $30,000, I was able to legalize my status. Despite of paying my taxes, and yes, illegals or undocumented immigrants, how you want to call it, we do pay taxes. I was able to legalize my status. I am now a USA citizen. And most of you might think, wonderful, right? Well, yes, on a certain way. But you know, being a naturalized citizen doesn't take the fact that I am still called a criminal, that I am still called a rapist, or that I am still considered the worst of the worst. Because my citizenship doesn't change the fact of how I look, doesn't change my accent, doesn't change the color of my skin, which I'm very proud of, by the way. You know, we as immigrants face an identity crisis, and it comes from the prospect of you belong nowhere, ni de aquí ni de allá. We come to the United States and we are the foreigners, the ones that come to take, you know, like Claudia said, the jobs of others or welfare takers. Another fact, undocumented immigrants do not qualify for any social services other than free and reduced lunch at school. So as I looked at my own identity and thinking about who I was and who I have become after moving to this country and reasons, you know, for economic reasons, and I did work at a maquiladora, which was an American factory, making like $15 a week.
In the city of Compton. My experience has been different from what most of you may stereotype a black male's experience in the city of Compton. If you know Compton at all, you know it from its, possibly, you may know it by its controversies, by the depiction of the movie called Straight Outta Compton. I have a total different experience, and I think it serves our desire to be a more diverse community, to have a more diverse perspective, to have a more a diverse experience. You know, I've had time, because I lived in Los Angeles, I've had experiences. I've been to Mexico several times. I've had a chance to go to Jamaica several times, and I've spent some time in Brazil. And I'm an American, and as you all travel the world, you know that Americans have a certain swagger when they travel to different countries. I mean, you know, you would hear it often, someone saying, I'm an American, but I'm an American. You know, you can't say that to me, I'm an American. So we do have a swagger when we visit other parts of the world. We do need to be informed by that. I don't know. I think we need to, as Americans, we need to be more hospitable when people come to visit us. For example, I push back on the campus of Wichita State University. I push back when people refer to students from other countries as foreign students. They're not foreign students, they're international students. And to label anyone as foreign is to reduce their stature. It's to diminish people. And so they're international students, and we all can benefit from the presence of international culture, of international thinking, of international norms. Lastly, I want to say that, you know, in my Jamaican experience, you all have heard that there's this mantra that is embraced. It's called One Love, One Blood. It's beautiful. It suggests that we all are related to one another. And so I think, I don't have a whole lot to describe in terms of immigration. I think the ladies on the panel were eloquent, even though they were describing some horrific situations. They were eloquent in their descriptions. But I want to tell you that it's been my success in terms of serving as a university's liaison and building bridges between the academic community and the rest of the world. The rest of the world is the pedestrian community, the resident community, the faith-based community, the for-profit, the non-for-profit community.
Learn a little bit more about what each one of you do on a daily basis. If you want to just kind of go down and do that real quick.
All right, cool. Well, Sunflower Community Action is a grassroots nonprofit. It was established in Wichita in 1990 and incorporated in 1991. We actually have one of our founders here. I won't put her on the hot seat, but we do. Laura Duncan. Sorry, Laura. So anyway, we do community organizing, and our definition of organizing is working with people who are directly affected by issues and helping them to address decision makers who are kind of perpetuating some of the issues that they are affected by. Like what Amir was saying with Karl Rove, or with Governor Brownback, or any of our city officials. We take people who are directly affected by issues to the decision makers who have the power to affect change.
On the grassroots level, we have a community garden, one in operation. We own another lot, and there's another one that soon will be donated to us. So hopefully we'll have 3 gardens by next year. All the produce that we grow is non-GMO. It's free to the community, and our goal is to teach young people and all people the importance and skills of gardening. The garden that we have at 1121 North Green is a miracle in itself. It came about, I don't know who all believes in God, I do. The gentleman who donated the land to us said that God placed it on his heart to help build community gardens. He overheard me talking about a community garden. So he donated the land. It was amazing. As I was staring at this piece of land with an old fence with trees growing through it and weeds as tall as me, with a mattress, alcoholic bottles, you name it, all of this was in the lot. I said, this would be an awesome garden. So after a few prayers and a few conversations, everything just fell in place. A friend of mine that played at Fringe University, Garrett Lavis, knew another guy who had one of those, I forget his name. No. It was a bobcat, and he took out the entire fence, leveled all of the weeds, cleaned out the entire lot. We wrote a grant to Home Depot. Home Depot loved what we were doing so much that we got a gazebo. They put in a swing set that we didn't ask for. They made all of our raised beds cedar because it was Douglas fir, and they said that was horrible. So they did all of that work, and last year, Boy Scouts, a gentleman by the name of Isaac Carrillo, built our fence. So that was his Eagle Scout project. So that was a real community-led effort, something that I'm proud of. So off of that, so I could talk about that.
Most of my job in the community is just volunteer. I don't belong to any organizations. I just do it by heart. I do get allies. I sometimes come and talk to Amira or Laura or Veronica Armando and kind of get help from everywhere. I just joined a couple months ago the board of the Urban League, and one of the reasons I accepted the invitation is because of my vision of just eventually having just one community and stop taking those stereotypes of segregating in the community. But some of the things I do is I do workshops for the Hispanic community to teach them how to face a deportation of a family member, what papers they need to have, what they need to do and say and ask. And they need to learn this because our immigration attorneys, and if there's any immigration attorneys here, I'm sorry, I'm just going to be very honest. Our immigration attorneys here in Wichita are not doing the job that they're supposed to do. I am a member of several immigration attorneys, social groups from all over the country, and I see how those attorneys really fight hard for their clients. I haven't seen one in Wichita, and I know most of them like that. What they are doing in Wichita is they will come, or the client will come to them asking for help because their loved one was detained. They will charge them $5,000, $7,000 just to start the case. They will go present documentation, and for very little reasons where they can really fight, they will just come to the client and say there's nothing to do, have your loved one sign their voluntary departure after they charge $5,000.
Thank you. I'll be brief. There is some, the State House Casa de las Semillas stickers over there, so you can take one and check our website and also go to our Facebook page. But the State House Casa de la Semilla, rather than being a place, is basically we seek to create a space for people to come and talk about the issues that they're facing and come out with common solutions. The beautiful murals, a lot of the beautiful murals that have come out of these kind of conversations, immigration is beautiful on Park Place and 21st, and diversity and inclusiveness in 23rd in Arkansas and some other places. But those are some of the things that have come out of the City House, as well as the ICT Army of Art is a project that came out of the City House that is doing these beautiful murals. And Armando Menjares is here, who is our artist, and Laura Dungan, who is also our facilitator for these workshops, and Veronica, who created the Euron's Arts Festival. So all this has come out of the City House, and basically just creating that space for people to come and talk about the difficult issues that we're not talking about. I do the Citizenship Academy, and again, talking about identity, about who we are, the anti-immigrant laws, and all those kind of stuff. How and why did they come out, about who is behind all these things.
Hugo Wall School of Urban and Public Affairs. Yeah. But my office, the Office of Community Liaison that I represent, was born as a result of a 911 call to the Wichita Fire Department on November 14, 2014. And when the fire department responded to that grass fire call, they found a woman, a beautiful young woman who was a mother. And her name is Letitia Davis. Letitia Davis lost her life about a week after she was found in the Fairmount Park due to trauma. The community rallied around Letitia Davis and her family, and the Office of Community Liaison was a result of that, of the good intentions. My job is funded by the Kansas Health Foundation, and ultimately we are to raise the quality of life in a particular community, the Fairmount community, and take the lessons learned from that experience and bring it to other communities around the university specifically, and around the city of Wichita. To raise the quality of life with no parameters, and anyone can define that. You can define that by varying perspectives. So there's no definition, but to raise the quality of life is my goal, and the way we're.
If you'd like to respond. So, firstly, with regard to cultural awareness, how has Wichita changed over the last 5, 10, or 20 years? What are you all observing as far as changes here?
I can talk a little bit about this in terms of from a police perspective. I've actually seen a lot of change come from within the police department in terms of their willingness to dive into cultural awareness, and that of course came from organizing the community to demand that of our police department. I think our new chief, Chief Ramsey, has done a much better job of trying to connect directly with community members. I remember having a meeting with him and the family just last week, which was really novel to me, that the chief of the police department would be willing to meet with his family who had their 13-year-old son detained and in handcuffs for a robbery that he did not commit. In that sense, I think Wichita has done a much better job of attempting to address this issue. Are we there? Absolutely not. We still got a ways to go. But I do see the willingness for change. Even to have a panel like this be put together, to me shows a willingness for the community to want to change the perceptions that I think a lot of people may have. Because unfortunately, reading a lot of the comments on some of the different news articles, and it can be really kind of discouraging. But when you get out of the internet and you actually start to go and talk to people, you get a much clearer understanding that Wichita is not as bad of a place as some people would like to paint it out to be.
I was out of Wichita for some years, but honestly, coming back to me, for the Hispanic community, for what I see, it hasn't improved anything. I actually see it's going backwards. Since, for example, 10, 12, 15 years ago, we could drive freely. We could have a driver license. Now we don't have driver license. I do see, like the one said, I hope with the new police chief, I've been talking to him about it also, and he seems like he really want to do things more diverse. But I actually seen an increase on the Hispanic population here, but actually that we still have no resources at all. We have a local TV channel in Spanish, which only reproduce the English-speaking news, kind of like the dolls. They don't come into our community. They don't come and interview the person who sells the ice cream. They don't come and ask us how we feel. So there's not the community. The Hispanic community is still silent. Nobody listens. Nobody knows what they're doing, and they don't know what's going on in Wichita. So, like I said, I was out of here for a long time, but I was here back in the 90s where I used to have the Spanish newspaper. We used to have a Spanish-speaking mayor, and so I don't, like, specifically in the Hispanic community, I don't see any improvement. I think we're going backwards.
In a way that it has changed, there is a bunch of radical artists expressing through art, and I think that's awesome. There needs to be more of that happening. And I agree with Claudia on the fact that we are regressing on a lot of sense, and I think the way that our politics are right now, I think are pushing us more and more to the chase, to the hideouts in certain senses, and then I am very frustrated with the lack of qualified candidates that really represent our diversity here on the state of Kansas and throughout, in the lack of both parties on really being sensible to the communities of color and even more to the Latino community, in the sense that there isn't a real effort to really reach out to them and to talk to them and to hear about their issues. There is a little effort on the sense of finding those tokens of people of color so that they can say they care, but no, not much.
Again, in Charleston, they speak Gullah still, and it's an African dialogue. And so they say in Charleston, either you come yet or you're from yet, right? So I come yet, I'm not from yet, and so I want to say, if I insult anybody, any indigenous Wichitans, I regret that. But let me say, I've been here for a little over 10 years. And it's been my experience as of the last couple of years. We have a new president in Wichita State University. We have a new police chief that's been suggested. And we have a new director of the Park and Recreations. And combined, those three leaders, I think, represent a optimism. I know for a fact that, for example, the international students on the campus of Wichita State University have been dealt a tough set of cards in the past, and I know that the president of the university, as well as Troy Hauptman, the director of Park and Recreations, are intentional about being a better host to the international students in terms of housing, in terms of recreation, and those kinds of things. Again, Chief Ramsey has been great. I've only had a chance to talk to him twice, but I'm optimistic about his approaches.
Thank you. Thank you so much to our wonderful panel. Let's have another round of applause for our panel. I think this was a really good conversation and a good step, and hopefully we can keep on stepping. And Engage ICT will continue. Of course, we have different topics each month. If you would like to come next month, it is June 14th, and it will be at the Brickyard. We'll discuss nonprofit funding and more quality of life issues in the area. So June 14th, if you want to put that on your calendar, we'd love to have you there. And bring someone with you who hasn't been paying attention. That's the homework that I give at the end of every Engage ICT. Someone who maybe isn't aware of issues in our community. Bring them. Get them by whatever method you choose. Just there's free food. That's pretty compelling usually. So bring a friend and join us for these wonderful discussions. And take our survey online at engageict.org. You can see a lot of different resources there, a lot of information. Again, we have information, further reading on this topic as well as all of our previous topics at our info table at the back. And we do have that new forum, which I'm going to need to remember, discuss.engageict.org. if you'd like to continue this conversation there as well. So thank you all so much for coming out. We really appreciate you, and have a good night.